All right, everybody, this is our first official race here at CSRL. We've had some really impressive racing before this point. Some great practice races, some great practices, some great hour-long races preparing for the format that we're going to run our season in. Tonight's race is an hour-long race. An hour-long race with a 20-minute pit window in the middle. So 20 minutes into the race, the pit window will open. 40 minutes into the race, the pit window will close. So that's the format we have. There is no mandatory tires, no mandatory fuel. So if you want to pit, hit your stall, stop for 5 or 10 seconds, however long the minimum time is, and then exit the pits, you can. On a track like Spa, I would definitely not recommend that because the tires are a big factor here on this track because it's such a high-speed track. For our race tonight, our first official race, the qualifying was in the rain. So because of that, our order is a little bit off from where it might normally be. We have Mike Doherty starting in first, Kyle Macedo starting in second, Jay Vroman starting in third, David Macedo starting in fourth, Michael Gerhart in fifth, Robert Everett in sixth, Andre Marchishin in seventh, Joe Marsiglia in eighth, Craig Everett in ninth, John Snow, who dominated last night, is starting in 10th, Pedro Perez, who is in his first ever official race tonight, is starting in 11th, and Mark Patterson, who I don't believe registered a qualifying lap during qualifying, is starting in 12th. So, very interesting lineup we have here. We know Roman has a lot of speed here. We know David and Kyle Macedo have a lot of speed here. I don't even bother mentioning Mike Doherty because Mike Doherty has speed seemingly everywhere. And his consistency is definitely his biggest weapon. So you got Doherty starting in front. Michael Gerhart has had really good speed at Spa. He's looking really good, starting in fifth. Robert Everett, we really don't know. He hasn't been at the practices or the practice races. In the rain, he was able to qualify sixth, but we really don't know what his race pace is like. Andre Marchishin is really fast at Spa, and he's starting in seventh. So that tells you the rain kind of mixed everything up for everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how this race unfolds. Some great racing last night. Unfortunately, more accidents than we want to see. A lot of that just comes down to the track and worn tires. You know, this track is a very high-speed track, and as the tires go away, you can see the effects on the drivers, losing it through Eau Rouge or missing a braking zone at a different part of the track is definitely took its toll on our race last night. The second race in particular, only the top three finished without some sort of incident. Everybody else had some kind of incident throughout that race. So we're hoping to see a cleaner race here tonight. You can see everybody's spaced out right now, warming up their tires and their brakes and getting ready for the start of this race. Spa has been an adventure. Let's put it at that. It's been quite an adventure so far. It's definitely been harder on the drivers and the cars in a lot of ways than the other tracks that we've ran so far. This is going to be, we have a driver's meeting before every race, and every time we talk about you're not going to win a race on the first lap, but you can definitely lose one on the first lap. So we hope that everybody heeds that warning and, keeps it clean and sets in for a long race. Because an hour race is a long race. There's a lot of things that can happen over the course of an hour. And, this is essentially endurance racing more so than sprint racing. We don't really do sprint races. Even the 30-minute races that we do on Friday night, we do two 30-minute races. Even those towards the end start to feel kind of like an endurance race, because 30 minutes is a long time on one set of tires. So it's going to be a challenge tonight, and we're going to see who can be consistent enough to come out. I mean, if anything, the most shocking thing that we're dealing with right now is Jon Snow is in 10th place. John ran away with both races yesterday. He ended up crashing in the first race and not finishing well, but the second race he led from beginning to end. He never lost the lead. So he dominated in the second race. So seeing him start in 10th, he's got a lot of work ahead of him, a lot of places to make up. We'll see what he can do with that. But he showed fantastic pace last night. But last night doesn't count for points. Tonight does count for points. So here we are, Saturday night. We've got an hour race. You see the guys are formed up now. We're getting ready for the start of the race. Coming down the hill here. Everybody looks to be formed up pretty good. Alright, so we got Kyle Macedo, got a good jump, taking the lead, coming up the hill here. Whoa, gets a little close there between Vroman and Robert Everett. Everett's falling in behind Mike Doherty. And you see Everett unsure where he wants to go. He's back and forth. Oh no, he's trying to go down the inside and manages to run it off the track. So Everett's off the track. Oh no, he's coming back onto the track. You see everybody bunching up there, and Gerhart gets taken out, and Vroman hits him, and it looks like Marcheshin hit Vroman. So that accident is going to be devastating for at least Michael Gerhart, because Gerhart was running in 5th and had a lot of speed here at this track. Let's take another look at what happened here. So Gerhart, he's in a crowd, and David Macedo gets loose. He's trying to avoid hitting Doherty, and he gets hit by Everett, who gets hit by Vroman, who gets hit by Marcheshin. So that's an unfortunate turn of events right there. We've got Jon Snow back here with him. We got Pedro Perez, who is pulling up the back of the pack here. This is Pedro's first ever official race, and you see that bright green livery that he brought to the race. That looks like it's going to be his livery for the season, and he unveiled it tonight. We see somebody off in the outfield there. Looks like Craig Everett off the track. All right, let's get back to the front. So we got Kyle Macedo, followed by David Macedo, followed by Mike Doherty. Mike Doherty traditionally gets bad starts in races. You know, he was on the pole for this race. It typically takes him a lap or so, maybe 2 laps, to kind of settle down. Oh, but you can see, okay, we're seeing now that Kyle Macedo jumped the start. So even though he's in the lead right now, you saw Mike Doherty take second place from David Macedo pretty easily there. Kyle Macedo's in the lead, but he's got a drive-through penalty he has to serve. So this lead is not, it's not in fact going to count. He's going into the pits right now. That's a really, really bad turn of events for him. You see Doherty taking the lead now. He's looking really good. He's back where he started, back in first place. You see Joe Marsiglia in 3rd. Mark Peterson is running 4th. Jay Vroman is also going to the pits, no doubt because of the damage he took from that incident with Gerhart. Robert Everett is running 7th behind Andre Marcheshin. you know, the officials are definitely going to take a look at what happened there with Everett rejoining the track right in the middle of a pack of cars. That's something that once you've lost your position on the track, you no longer have a right to the racetrack. You have to wait till it is clear. Whoa, as you see Marchician make a close move on Robert right there. So some really close racing between these guys. Gerhart is running back in 10th right now. Or excuse me, 9th place. He's in 9th place. John Snow has moved up to 8th place. Pedro Perez is running in 7th place in his first ever official race. So he's got to be both having a blast and also nervous as hell right now, as he's got John Snow behind him. And I know him and Snow have driven together before. They know each other, but that's still a very unsettling feeling. You know, can Pedro hold him off for a little bit here? We're going to see. All right, let's get back to the front. We got Joe Marsiglia running in 2nd. Now, wait a minute. Marsiglia was behind David Macedo. Let's see what happened to David Macedo here. At least I thought Marsiglia was behind, but there we go. Okay. All right, so coming into that long braking zone, David gets loose. Whoa, almost turns it around, ends up off the track, and rejoins coming into the next turn there. So Joe's going to take the position. Now he's got Mark Peterson right behind him. So that's going to be a problem for David, because Patterson is showing a lot of pace so far this weekend. So you can see Kyle Macedo is just now coming out of the pits. He's fallen all the way back to 11th place after that drive-through penalty. So he's got a long race in front of him. You see Jay Vroman, you know, he's taken a substantial amount of damage, so he's probably going to be in the pits for a little while. We got Andre Marchician and Robert Everett battling for 5th place. It's showing me that Everett was in front. Let's take a look at what happened there. Everett takes it around the outside there, gets a good run coming up the hill. Coming into this long braking zone, this is where he had a problem before. He managed to keep it on the track, but Andre just got the move done on him, took the position there. Okay, so Mark Patterson, let's take a look on board with him. He's behind David Macedo, who is behind Joe Marsiglia. Patterson keeping it nice and smooth through here. I mean, he seems to be settling into a good race pace. You know, it's a long race, a lot of tire wear yet to come, fuel weight changes, the track itself is going to change, everything's going to change throughout the course of this race. So, definitely showing that he can keep pace with Macedo and Marsiglia. Let's see what happens here. Let's take a look at Andre. Andre Marchician has fallen back a little bit behind Mark Peterson. You see Peterson up ahead there, but that's a pretty good gap. Oh, and you see, it looks like Joe Marsiglia right there. Let's take a look at Marsiglia. What happened to him? Marsiglia is coming through. Oh, he gets on the bumper right there and spins it around. Ends up in the wall, but not too hard into the wall. man, oh man. So that was second place for him. Now he's back in fourth place. He's currently running in fourth. We got Andre Marchishin. So we got Robert Everett behind Andre Marchishin. Getting a little bit of a run on him here, and just late braking into the final turns here. He's able to keep from hitting Andre, but that's definitely a risky move right there. So Everett moves up into fifth place, Marchishin right behind him. Let's take a look at David Macedo. He is running in second. We see him get a little off the track there. Running in second, he's got Mark Peterson behind him. Mark's got to be excited about how this race is going for him, because he had a hard time a little bit last night, but he's looking good here in the main race where it really counts. We're only 2 laps into the race. Already a lot of things have happened just 2 laps into the race. See how far Joe is behind these guys. He's got Robert Everett right on him, and Andre Marchishin is right behind Everett. So Joe, I don't know how much damage he sustained on that contact with the wall, but it looks like he's going to keep it out on the track. Just a matter of, can he keep pace or not? How much damage did he take? So we'll have to wait and see how his pace kind of shakes out after a few laps here. He's looking solid right now. So this is the battle for fourth place. Marsiglia, Everett, and Marchishin. Let's take a look back up at second place's battle. We got David Macedo, Mark Patterson. Mark's definitely keeping it interesting, staying on Macedo. Mike Doherty has pulled out a 5.9 second lap in the lead here, so he's got a pretty good gap on these guys. You know, we saw this last night from John Snow. John Snow got out in the front at the beginning of the second race and never looked back. He led wire to wire and dominated throughout the race. So you can see those guys back there. There's about a 6-second gap, so they're there if Doherty makes a mistake, but if he doesn't make a mistake, it's going to be hard to catch him. Let's take a look at Marsiglia now. Running in fourth. You see Everett looking down the inside on him. Backs out of it. Andre Marchishin is still right behind these guys. Kind of hanging in place right there in sixth place. Joe's looking pretty good despite that incident that he had. He's holding on to fourth pretty well. Let's take a look back a little bit. We got John Snow, who is 5.2 seconds off of Andre Marchishin. Andre's dealing with trying to keep up with Robert Everett and Joe Marsiglia. But John was the fastest guy on the track last night, and he's got great pace here. So it's a long race. He's got some time to make up on people. We'll see what he can do. Take a look on board with him. You can see Andre up there, just out of reach at the moment, but John's got it down to a 3.6 second gap, so he's slowly running them down. We got Craig Everett in 8th place, followed closely by Michael Gerhart. Who's followed closely by Pedro Perez. Pedro having a nice race so far. You see Kyle Macedo behind him. He had that drive-through penalty, so he's 26 seconds behind Pedro. And Jay Vroman is back on the track. He's running in 12th. And let's see if we can see the split of where he's at compared to Kyle Macedo. Well, Kyle Macedo is 24 seconds off Pedro, 24.6. Vroman, I'm trying to see the split, but it's not showing up here. Alright, well, let's get back to the front. We'll keep our eyes peeled for that split between Kyle Macedo and Jay Vroman. So we got David Macedo still running in 2nd. Mark Peterson still behind him. We've got Robert Everett running in 4th. Joe Marsiglia right behind him. Andre Marchishin behind that. And then John Snow, you see him slowly gaining. John has brought it down to a 2.6 second gap. So he's catching up to Andre here. See Joe Marsiglia right up on Robert Everett here, coming down into this really sharp right-hander. Let's take a look on board with Joe. Look on board with John Snow. John Snow ran a 2:20.3 his last lap. He is only 1.2 seconds behind Andre, who is catching up to Joe. So Andre is trying to get past Joe so he can get away from John. This is about to get pretty close right here with these three guys. See Joe taking that turn a little bit wide there, but he manages to keep it under control. see John here looking pretty racy coming through this high-speed area of the track. Oh, and Robert Everett just got a drive-through penalty for track limits. So he exceeded the track limits one too many times, and he is going to get a drive-through penalty. He's currently running in 4th. That's going to put him quite a ways behind. See if John can do anything with Andre and Joe now. That car out front, Robert Everett, doesn't really factor in anymore because he has a drive-through penalty, so he's going to be out of it. So this is going to be the battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th right here within the next lap or so. You see Andre pulled a little gap on John, though. John losing touch a little bit. Let's see what Andre's up to. He's trying to keep the pressure on Joe Marsiglia. Marsiglia is still holding on to it despite that contact he had with the wall earlier. Still running in 5th. Let's take a look at the battle up here for 2nd. We got Mark Peterson still trying to keep it close with David Macedo. David holding him at bay so far. These guys are doing some nice close racing. They've been racing together for quite a while. Mark closing the gap down a little bit, but gets a slow run out of that corner there. That's going to let David open it back up a little bit. You see Robert here, he still hasn't done his drive-through. Let's take a look on board with Joe. Joe might not be aware that Robert Everett has a drive-through, so he's just running his race. We got Andre Marchishin running in 5th place. It says 6th, but it'll be 5th here in a minute. And we got John Snow running in 6th place behind Andre. He's reeled him back in again, so that this is kind of a close battle again. Let's take a look back at Mike Doherty. He has opened the gap to 16.1 seconds, so he is running away with this thing at the moment. He's got 7 laps under his belt and looks really, really solid. Doherty's hard to beat in any situation because he's so consistent, but when he's able to get out front and just outpace everybody on top of that consistency, he's extremely dominant. You wonder if, with the pit strategies and everything else, if anybody can challenge him or not. I guess we're going to find out, but let's take a look back at Snow. He's right on Andre here. So we're 8 laps into the race. This is about the time where your tires really start to go away on this track, around somewhere between 7 and 10 laps, depending on how you've been driving. Your tires tend to start to fade pretty good around this time. So we'll see how all these guys can manage. Oh, and you see John just turn it around in a slow corner right there. Really slow part of the track. Just got it on the curbing there. Let's take a look at that in the onboard and see what happened there. He's on Andre. He's been on Andre for a few laps. He comes down into this slow corner, takes that okay, gets onto the curb and just, I don't know if he was too quick on the gas there or what happened, but he just lost the back end of that thing. That's not something you see him do very often in this Bentley. So that's an unfortunate turn of events for him. That's gonna give Andre some breathing room, which I'm sure he's not upset about because he had been under pressure for a while. So now he's just got Joe Marsiglia to deal with. And David Macedo has pulled a gap on Joe. Oh, so Mark Peterson took David Macedo's place. Let's take a look at what happened there, because these guys were battling for quite a long time. All right, so we got Mark Peterson on David Macedo. Really close racing, looking for anywhere he can make a move. He's going to come around the inside, which turns into the outside, and he's able to make that pass on the outside of the curve there. It's definitely not the place you would tell somebody to make a move, but it worked out. He had a lot of speed through that area. He was able to make that move stick. And that's just a good job of Mark taking his time and waiting for an opportunity to present itself instead of trying to force it. When you try to force it, bad things typically happen. So good job by Mark to find the spot, take the spot, and now he's running in second place, but he's got a long gap between him and Doherty. He's at 17.7 seconds behind Doherty. So of course pit stops are going to start pretty quick here for these guys. So we'll see what that ends up like for everybody. You see David running in third, Joe Marsiglia running in fourth with Andre behind him. You see Andre's just out of touch there, not quite able to get in the slipstream and gain on him here, but he's not going away either. Joe's going to have to deal with him at some point if he doesn't pick up his pace a little bit here. Let's take a look at John Snow. I know he just had that spin. He looks like he's kind of in no man's land right now. Because Robert is in the pits. So the closest guy behind John Snow is about 30 seconds behind. And John is 9.7 seconds, almost 9.8 seconds behind Andre, so he's got a big open section of track where he can just turn laps. The good news is he's really fast here. The bad news is he's dealing with some fast drivers. Marsiglia, Marchician, David Macedo, Mark Peterson, and Mike Doherty have all been really fast today, so I don't know what he's going to have for any of those guys. Go back up to Mark Peterson here. He's pulled a gap on David Macedo. Mark showing he's got the pace. Let's see if he can do anything with Doherty. A lot of laps left in this race, but he's looking at an 18-second gap from him to Doherty, so that's going to be a pretty big hurdle to get over right there. I don't know if he's got enough time to catch Doherty. Doherty would have to make a mistake, and Doherty very seldom makes mistakes. So Yeah, Doherty's got it back up to 18.1 seconds, so no time gained on that lap. Let's take a look back at Marsiglia, still dealing with Marcheshin. These guys battling for fourth. Marcheshin is not right on him, but he's keeping at least in the same area code at all times. So one mistake from Joe. We know Joe had that off track earlier where he ended up in the wall. Lucky not to sustain any serious damage from that. But he's sustaining right now a good pace. He's keeping Andre at bay. We know Joe's quite a ways behind. We know Craig Everett is way behind John Snow. Kyle Macedo is 12.9 seconds behind Craig Everett. He's up into 8th place. Pedro Perez is running in 9th place right now. Wait a minute, he's running in 9th place. And that is because Michael Gerhart is in the pits. Michael Gerhart has been our one advocate for a two-stop strategy. Michael seems to think that a two-stop strategy can work, and he's going to make it work. I don't know if he's going to die on that hill, but it looks like he's going for it in this race, which tires are a really big issue on this track, so I'm not sure. Maybe it'll work out for him. You see him entering into the second pit lane here. This is where his pit box is going to be. So then we got Robert Everett, who is behind Pedro Perez. He's going to come down the inside and take the position from Pedro. Pedro running in 10th place. Pedro's got to be happy with that right now because he's ahead of two of the fastest guys on the track all weekend, which was Jay Vroman and Michael Gerhart. So Pedro running a nice race so far. Let's check on Peterson. Peterson is still in second. It's a 19.3 second gap, so Doherty is actually opening the gap on Peterson. Peterson had a really good pace when he got past David Macedo, but it seems like he's lost some pace since then. I don't know if his tires are really starting to fade on him, or if maybe he was taking advantage of having Macedo to run those quick laps. Sometimes having somebody in front of you makes you faster because you're following that guy around the track. Once you're on your own, maybe you're not quite as fast. I'm not sure if that's the case here, but tires are definitely going to be an issue for all these guys. We're going to be running excuse me, we're going to be running about 24, 25 laps tonight, roughly. So, you know, these guys are going to be pitting. I don't know what the pit strategy is, honestly. You know, we've got Mike Gerhart who's going for the two-stop race, and at least I assume that's what he's doing because he was in the pits really, really early. So we got Gerhart going with that strategy, and we've got guys like John Snow, and I think John Snow has been one of our late pit guys. He's pitted really late in the stint. So we'll see what happens here. You know, Snow's got really good pace even on worn tires, so he might be able to stretch it out for a while and gain some positions. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take a look at Marsiglia and Marcheshin. These guys are still keeping it pretty close here. You saw Michael Gerhart there, but Gerhart's not racing these guys for position. He's on a different lap than those guys. So he's running his own race. He doesn't have to worry about these guys, and they're quite a ways ahead of him. So that's definitely not a battle for position. Take a look at John Snow. He's cut this gap behind Marcheshin down to 5.5 seconds. So he fell all the way back. I want to say, if I can remember right, we said he was at about a 9-second gap after that spin. Maybe 9.5. So he's already cut it down to a 5.5 second gap on Marcheshin. So John has the speed that he had last night. He's just, you know, he had that unfortunate spin right there as you see him get nowhere near the bumper coming around that turn. I wouldn't either after what happened. He keeps it on the pavement now. A lot of racing left to go. There's still a lot of things that can happen. Certainly nothing is decided yet for any of these guys. Even Doherty, who's now pulled a 20.4 second lead, so he's really looking good. And you see David Macedo. Macedo has kept this gap from getting too big. He's at 5.1 seconds behind Peterson. So he's not within touch of Peterson, but depending on who pits where, this could greatly affect what happens with this battle right here. You see David nice and smooth through there. You can see Peterson up ahead there, but it's a pretty good gap to Peterson. Let's take a look at Marchishin. He's still on Marsiglia. Just hasn't been able to get up to him and really do anything with him. Joe has been really consistent since that early mistake. He had that early mistake that put him back here in this position. He was running in second at the time, I believe, when he ended up in the wall. But ever since then, he's run really consistent, and he's holding on to fourth place. Oh, and Joe's going into the pit, so Andre's going to take the position right here. So we got Joe in the pits. He might be one of the first guys who is actually pit in the pit window. We've had some other guys in the pits, but it was because of incidents and penalties. I don't think anybody else has been in the pits for their actual official pit stop. We see Kyle Macedo here running in 8th. Trying to see what the split is behind him. Pedro Perez is 22.8 behind him, so he's got plenty of room here. He's 5.1 seconds behind Craig Everett. Craig Everett, haven't heard much from him tonight. He's kind of had a quiet race. He's kind of been on his own for a while right now. He is 30 seconds behind Marsiglia, and Kyle Macedo is now under 5 seconds. He's 4.5 seconds behind him. So he may have some pressure from Kyle Macedo here as we see Vroman coming out of the pits. So Vroman takes his pit stop. That's going to put Jay all the way down into last place. And we see Kyle Macedo coming around Vroman here. He's got the momentum coming over the hill there. Okay, so let's take a look back towards the front. We got David Macedo, who is now 8.6 seconds behind Peterson. He's fallen off from Peterson. Peterson has cut the lead down to 18.7 on Doherty, but that's still a really large gap, 18.7 seconds. That's it's going to take quite a, and he's going into the pits right now. So it's going to take quite a race for the rest of the race for him to be able to catch Doherty, especially because Doherty has been really, really fast. Not just consistent tonight, but also fast. So you combine those two things, and he's really, really dangerous. So we see Doherty here coming down into the pits. So because these guys are both pitting, David Macedo is going to end up in the lead of the race for now. Excuse me. And he has got... the next person behind him is Andre Marchishin, who's quite a ways behind. And Andre has Jon Snow behind him, but that's a pretty decent gap between those two, almost 3 seconds. then Craig Everett is way behind these guys, so they're spaced out pretty good. Kyle Macedo is in the pits. Kyle had closed that gap to Craig Everett, but he is in the pits. So is Everett. So these guys are going to go in together and come out together. Okay, so David Macedo is in the lead of the race, and he is all by himself. He's got nothing but open, clean track in front of him. And a lot of race left, so, you know, it seems like every race, at least there's one guy who goes for the long strategy and really tries to stretch that initial set of tires. So we got Andre, who's behind David. These guys are both running at least one more lap on these tires. We'll see how far they try to push it. So the only real battle for position we have going right now is going to be between these two guys that are in the pits. When Craig Everett and Kyle Macedo come out of the pits, assuming nobody messes up their pit stop, these guys are going to be really close together. Everybody else right now, because of pit stops, is very spread out. You see Marsiglia, who pitted earlier, he is 58 seconds behind Macedo, but he's making a lot of that up right now because Macedo is sitting in the pits. So we got Michael Gerhart, who seems to be running a two-stop strategy. He's up into 9th place. Pedro Perez is in 10th place behind him. Jay Vroman is in 11th place. And we saw Jay pit earlier. And then we got Robert Everett pulling up the rear here in 12th place. He kind of hasn't recovered from that. Something's wrong with Everett here. He's gonna... Oh my gosh, he stops right in the middle of the track, and David Macedo is gonna make contact with him. That's gonna hurt Macedo because Macedo was trying to make the best time he could on older tires because he's in the lead of the race right now. I don't know what happened to Everett, why he stopped in the middle of the track. I don't know what that's, you know, the officials are definitely going to take a look at that. I don't know what that's all about, but now we've got Kyle Macedo, who is currently shown in 7th place, who has caught up to David Macedo. Now these guys are not racing for position, but Kyle and David are brothers, and they run really, really well together. Of course, last time I said that, one of them spun out, but excuse me, they run really well together. The first time they kind of exploded onto the scene with our league was in a rain race. It was raining at Brands Hatch, and these guys had a battle for like 5th or 6th place that lasted almost the entire race. They were switching off positions and battling the entire race, and it was really fun to watch, especially knowing that it's two brothers, you know, and you can only imagine the amount of trash talk that was probably going on between those two after the race, battling like that for an entire race. So we've got David Macedo here. He's coming down. Let's see if he pits this lap. No, he is going to stay out. So he's got 14, about to be 15 laps on these tires. So yeah, he's at 15 laps now on these tires. So let's take a look at what his last pit, his lap time was 2:27.7. So that is not fast. Right now we are looking at Doherty. Doherty is shown in 2nd place right now. Trying to see what Doherty's lap is this lap, see what kind of pace he's on. Doherty about to cross the line. Let's see what his lap time was. It was a 2:28.1. So he didn't run a very fast lap right there either. So let's see, David Macedo. He is got his brother right on his tail here, and he's still running excuse me, on those initial tires. Let's see where the battle is going here for Marchician and Snow. Snow is now ahead of Marchician. It's a 5.2 second gap. So I'm not sure when Snow got past Marchician. I'm not sure how that happened. I think it was a while ago because I was busy looking at other stuff, so we missed that. But Marchician, I don't believe Marchician has pitted. I don't believe Jon Snow has pitted yet. We know David Macedo has not. Okay, he's pitting now. He's pitting now. So let's take a look at Jon Snow here. He's 17 seconds off Peterson. Okay, so Snow. Trying to see what the split is from Doherty to Peterson. Okay, it's 11.00 second split between Doherty and Patterson. So Patterson has made up a lot of that gap that Mike Doherty had before. He's got it down to 11 seconds. We are past the halfway point of the race. Like I said before, we're probably looking at about 24, 25 laps in this race. So we're on lap 17 right now, 16 laps in the books. So Doherty, David's in the pit, so Doherty's about to take the lead. There he goes through Eau Rouge. So Doherty is still being shown in second, but we know he's currently in first. He's 11 seconds behind Mark Peterson. I mean, in front of Mark Peterson, sorry. And David Macedo comes out in third place, and he's got Jon Snow behind him. Not far behind either, so Jon Snow trying to hunt down David Macedo. It's a pretty big gap between Macedo and Peterson, and an 11.3 second gap between Peterson and Doherty, who's in the lead. Let's take a look back a little bit here. We got Marsiglia running in 6th. Marchician is in front of him. Kyle Macedo is up into 7th place, but I think there's a pretty big gap between him and Joe Marsiglia. Let's see if it shows the split here. Marsiglia currently running in 6th place, Kyle running in 7th. Let's see what the gap currently is. Okay, so Kyle is 28 seconds behind Marsiglia, so that's a pretty big gap. Then you got Craig Everett, who's running in 8th. He's got an 18-second gap on Jay Vroman. Jay's had an unfortunate race so far tonight. A lot of mistakes made around him that cost him a lot of time in the pits. So unfortunate for him. Same with Michael Gerhart, caught up in that early accident with Jay. Neither of those guys were at fault for that, but just a bad situation there. Pedro is having a great race. You can see in the background there, Mike Doherty is coming up on Pedro, so the leader is catching 11th place. Pedro's running a good race so far. We got Robert Everett, who has not had a good race. He's running in 12th right now. You see Jay Roman behind him. But that's not going to be for position either. So, all right, let's take a look back towards the front. We've got Peterson is now 12.2 seconds behind Doherty, so he's losing a little bit of time to Doherty. David Macedo is up to a 15.7 gap behind Patterson, so he's losing a little bit of time to Patterson. So the top three are spread pretty far out. The only close battle between the top four is going to be this one right here. We've got David Macedo and John Snow 2.7 off of him. And then you see Marchician back there behind Snow. But he's at a 5.7 gap, so everybody's pretty spread out right now. I mean, it makes my job easy because there's less for me to keep up with, but you know, we'll see how some of these position battles shake out, if anybody can close the gap on anybody other than David Macedo and John Snow. John has closed down this gap now on David. And you see David you know, he led the race for quite a little while there with those older tires, taking the long strategy. But even while that was happening, I think John Snow was slowly reeling him in by his strategy. So John has caught him now. They're both on their second set of tires, so it's not really a question of their tires fading too much, I don't think, yet. John just has faster pace right now than David does. You see John looking down the inside here on this long, high-speed right-hander. He's going to make it stick. We've seen David get past in that part of the track right there. I think that was the third time we've seen him get past right there. He just coming through a rouge, just doesn't get the same speed coming over the hill that some of these other guys do, and it doesn't seem, I mean, it's probably only a couple of miles per hour. It's probably a very, very small difference, but when you have that long stretch after the hill where you get to top the car out, you know, that those couple of miles per hour start to add up. The speed that you get down that long straight, guys have been able to pass him right there. So John Snow moves up into third. We'll see what David can do. The two Bentleys doing battle right here. We'll see what David can do now that he's in the other position behind John Snow. We've got Peterson, who's now 12.6 behind Doherty. And Doherty's just, we call him Old Faithful, and this is why, because he is very, very consistent. Seldom makes a mistake, so, and he's pretty fast too. We say it like, oh, he's Old Faithful, he's slow and consistent. He's not slow. He's consistent, and he's fast enough with his consistency to really be dangerous. He's won more races in our league than anybody else. Mike really kills you with his ever presence. He's always at the end of the race. He's always up in the front. He's always good on old tires. He's good at managing his car, managing his tires, and he always finishes strong. And tonight he's led this race from the beginning up until now with really no problems. So great race by him so far. Let's take a look at David and John. See, John pulled a little bit of a gap there on David coming through Eau Rouge. That's the one spot where David seems to be just a little slow. These guys have passed him right on this stretch right here, this long straightaway. And I know it doesn't seem like much, and you wouldn't think it would really add up to much, but if you're a little bit slow through there lap after lap after lap over the course of 19 laps, it can really hurt you. So, but David's still having a great race. He's running in fourth. He's managed to avoid all the drama and all the things that happened earlier in the race. He almost lost it whenever he had to avoid an incident with Everett, who rejoined the track where he shouldn't have. But he held it together, and he's running in fourth place in our first official race. So that's a great result by him so far. We'll see if he can hold on to it. And behind him, we've got Andre Marcheshin, excuse me, who's 5.3 seconds behind David Macedo. So, pretty decent gap there. Joe Marsiglia is now 13.2 seconds behind Marcheshin, so not much threat from him. Kyle Macedo is 22 seconds behind him, running in 7th. Craig Everett is in 8th. I think the split between these two guys is pretty large. It's not currently showing, but I think it's pretty large gap here. Yeah, Craig Everett is 28 seconds behind Kyle Macedo, so there's a big gap there. Roman is reeling in Craig Everett. He's at 6.7 seconds behind him, and he was quite a ways behind not long ago, so he's running him down pretty fast. Roman's still got a lot of speed. He's had an unfortunate race, but now that the damage is repaired on that car and he's got some fresh tires, he's going to be fast. Currently running in 9th place. And now we've got Gerhart here running in 10th. His race has been less than favorable for him, that's for sure. I know he can't be happy with how the race started for him. So, he's 36 seconds behind Roman. 12 seconds behind him is Pedro Perez. Pedro's kind of running his own race tonight. It's his first official race, but good on him. And we got Robert Everett, who's in the pits here. I don't know what happened to Robert, but he's currently in the pits. So Pedro, good racing by him. First ever official race. Gotta be an adrenaline rush for him getting into his first league race. So we got Mark Peterson, who is still running in 2nd. Let's see what the gap is between him and Doherty now, if he's been able to break that down a little bit, or if it's at a 14.5. So it's a pretty big gap. It's a big gap on anybody, but when it's somebody like Doherty, it's an even bigger gap because he's just not going to make any mistakes. So you're going to have to literally run him down. And there's not going to be nearly enough laps unless Doherty makes a mistake. That's the only way that Patterson's going to catch him, is if he makes a mistake. So right now, with 21 laps in the race, the second set of tires has got to be getting older now. Let's take a look and see how Doherty's doing on these little bit older tires. Whoa. Did not do very well through there. Maybe I put the jinx on him, watching him come through there. I mean, Doherty's probably only got 3 or 4 laps left in this race, so all he's got to do is hang on to it. But you can't be doing that. That's how you blow it right there, is getting off the track like that. But he knows that. He's been racing a long time, and I think he's gonna maybe even slow down a little bit and get it back under control, because he's got a good gap right between him and second. So 14.1 seconds between Doherty and Peterson. David Macedo is now at 4.3 behind John Snow, so he hasn't completely lost Snow, but he's not kept it close either. He's got a little gap. And back there you see Marchician. Looked like Marchician was off the track for a second there. He's got it down to a 3.7 second gap on David. We'll see if he can do anything. Let's take a look at the onboard for Andre here. You see David up there. Andre's had really great pace the whole weekend on this track. He had a good couple of races last night, and now he's looked really solid throughout this entire race. This is just going to be a battle of attrition between these two guys, because you're managing older tires, you're managing your lap times and trying to run as fast as you can without pushing too hard, and just see if you can make up time on the guy in front. You see there, David Macedo has fallen back to 6.1 seconds behind John Snow, and Marchician has got it down to 3.1 seconds. Let's see what it's at when they cross the line here. Currently at 3.1 seconds. Marchician crosses the line. .2 seconds, so he didn't make any time up right there. Meanwhile, we got Jay Broman, who has caught Craig Everett for 8th place. Taking a look at Broman, looking around the outside, but I don't know if that's a great idea. Oh, you see Craig get way out wide and then rejoin the track. That's not a great racing move. That's something that's definitely frowned upon. Meanwhile, Broman's right on him, coming through the through the chicane there. Looking down the inside, Craig's going to run wide here. Oh, and he's going to lose it and put Jay into the wall. And that is going to be a very unfortunate turn of events. So, Michael Gerhart, running in 10th, is about to take 9th place. You see Craig Everett back on the track there. Jay Vroman took it to the pits. So that's a disappointing turn of events. Up ahead here, you see Andre Marchician, but let's take a look at David Macedo. He's trying to get past Pedro Perez here. Pedro, you know, in our league, there you go, Pedro lets him get through on the slow corner there. In our league, we tell guys, run your race. Don't go off the track to let people pass you. Just run your race, and when you see a good opportunity to let the guy pass, then do so cleanly. And you see Pedro doing a good job of that there, just letting David get through. Now Andre is hoping that he can make quick work of Pedro as well. And he already has. He's already gotten past Perez. So Andre's got a 2.6 second gap to catch David Macedo. But we are approaching the end of the race here. I don't know if Andre is going to have enough time to catch David. David at this point is just holding on to it. He's just trying to keep it between the lines and just stay in front of Andre. That's his only concern right now as we approach the end of this race. Good race by both of these guys. Neither guy could be upset about the way they finished if this is how they finish, 4th and 5th. Great race by them. Jon Snow had a great race, but he is in no man's land. He's got an 18-second gap between him and the guy in front, and a 4-second gap between him and the guy behind. Unless he makes a mistake, David's probably not going to have time to catch him. And he's looking at a strong 3rd place finish. Mark Peterson, great race by Mark. He made a long battle with David Macedo earlier, finally got past him, pulled away once he got past him, but really didn't have anything to give Mike Doherty. Mike Doherty, was just so far ahead. And you see Mike just completed the 24th lap of the race, so we're 24 laps into the books out of what is probably going to be a 25-lap race. So Doherty out in front, looking at the last lap of the race. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to change drivers there. Looking at the last lap of the race, he's got no pressure from anywhere, no one in front of him, nothing but room. All he's got to do is bring it home. So, and we know Mike is good at doing just that. So we got Doherty in first, Patterson in second, Jon Snow in third, David Macedo in fourth, Andre Marchishin in fifth. He's got that gap down to a 1.7 second gap. And he's going to have one more lap, I think, to try to make that pass on David Macedo. We're going to stay right here for a minute because this is where the action is. So let's click on David here so we can see both cars. Excuse me. You see, look like Marchishin ended up off the track right there. Oh, it's probably his connection. He's been having problems with his connection all night. And we've seen his car jump off the track a few times and then pop back in on the track. So just a connection error there. Down to 0.8 seconds, the gap on David Macedo. Macedo is trying to hold on to it. Marchishin is there. Do either one of these guys have enough tires left to be able to battle? I don't even know. Meanwhile, we've got Mike Doherty coming down here to take the win, and he's about to get the checkered flag. Great race by him. Awesome job by Doherty, keeping it nice and clean throughout the race and just dominating from beginning to end there. Really, really good on his part. Mark Peterson coming down to finish second. And now let's take a look at Jon Snow. He's coming down to finish third, but he's a pretty good gap behind Patterson here. As you see, Mike Gerhart in front of David Macedo here, but we're coming down to the end of the lap here. All he's got to do is hold on to it. David Macedo is going to finish fourth with Andre Marchishin finishing fifth right behind him. After that, everybody is spread out. We've got Joe Marsiglia finishing sixth. Kyle Macedo, 18 seconds behind him, finishing in seventh. You know, Kyle hit the wall really hard at one point during the race. Seventh place finish is nothing to scoff at considering the race he had. Craig Everett coming in eighth. He's managed to to finish in the top 10. Mike Gerhart in 9th, and then we've got Pedro Perez finishing in 10th out of 12. So he finished in front of 2 people on his very first race ever with our league. So really good job by him. Good job by everybody tonight. There were a few questionable. We see Doherty out here doing donuts and having fun celebrating his win. A few questionable moves by guys throughout the race. No doubt the officials are going to look into that, and you know, that'll be discussed in the coming days. But for right now, we're just going to celebrate with the guys who finished well. You know, everybody in the top 10 scored points tonight, so everybody who finished the race actually scored points tonight. So we're going to go back, and we are going to rewatch the start of the race. We are going to watch it on board from Mike Doherty. He started in first. Let's see how he managed, first of all, how he managed to screw that up, and then second of all, how he managed to get first place back. So we see him really tentative here through Eau Rouge. You see Vroman right there behind him, Robert Everett right behind him. So Doherty behind Kyle Macedo. You see Everett making a move down the inside, but he's not going to be able to make it stick. He runs wide. David Macedo to Doherty's left. David loses it for a second. Doherty manages to survive somehow. Gerhart and Vroman crashing behind him, tangling up some other guys with them. So right now Doherty is in third place. And let's see what happened on the rest of this opening lap. Now don't forget that Kyle Macedo, excuse me, who's in first place, he jumped the start. And so by jumping the start, he was immediately given a drive-through penalty. So even though he's in the lead right now, that's not going to matter, because he's going to have to do a drive-through, which is going to cost him a lot of positions in the race, among other things. But he's still in the lead right now. Got David Macedo right behind him. And we're on board with Mike Doherty right now, running in third place. Doherty coming around the inside here. Well, it's about to become the outside on David Macedo. Up alongside Macedo. Macedo thinks better of side by side and drops back in behind Doherty. So once that first 3/4 of a lap was over, Doherty kind of came back to life. You know, he's very tentative at the start of races. We've seen him drift back in the pack, and there you see Kyle Macedo heading for the pits. So Doherty ends up in first as they cross the line for the first time. And after this, he would never relinquish the lead again. I mean, there was a point where other people were leading, but it was because of pit strategy, not because they were actually outperforming Mike Doherty. He would lead the entire race after this point. So great race by him. Great race by everybody tonight. We're gonna have a great season. We're gonna clean up some of the mistakes that were made tonight for sure. And you know, you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can catch all the league races throughout the season. We have an 8-race season. Then we'll have a couple-week break, and then we'll be back with our second season. But we've got 8 straight weeks of racing. Next week is Silverstone. We are going to be as clean can be, so we're going to clean up some of the things we saw tonight and put on a better show next week. So thanks everybody for watching. CSRL League Race number 1, League Race number 2 is next week. Please join us for that, and everybody have a great night. Thank you.